Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and I feel like as we're coming to the end of 2026, there are so many things going on in people's brains, right? From, how do I want to shift into the next year to, maybe how do you find more joy? How do I lean more into my own intuition? What do I do when I get hit with curveballs and pivots in my life that I was absolutely not expecting? And so I am super excited to bring this guest to you today. I think that Shannon Hernandez is going to have some amazing insights for us. So Shannon, thank you so much for joining me at the podcast today.
Thanks. I think I'm actually going to just crown myself the queen of navigating curveballs at this moment in time.
I feel like it. And we're going to get into this, guys, so you can see, because boy, has she been hit with a curveball, which I think is a fantastic curveball, if I do say so myself. So do us all a favor then, Shannon. Tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
So hello, everyone. My name is Shannon, and my company is Joyful Business Revolution. And we help leaders, thought leaders, coaches, consultants, business owners with all things words to get their messaging on point, share a cohesive story from their website to their social media platform, and really show up with the authority and the sophistication of the expertise that they actually already have.
Boom. What's really interesting too is I never thought that words really mattered, like on any form, right? It was just like, whatever. They always say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And then, when I started getting into like the intuition space and learning to listen to myself, it was like, understanding that words have such a profound impact on how we speak about ourselves, how we are speaking about others, how we are pushing the direction of our business or our personality, right, as a whole. And so I love that like words is like your space to be in. And there was also a piece that you had shared, and I was reading this in your bio, and you guys, I have to share this because I thought this was like phenomenally put. So you said that you are a fierce advocate for message sovereignty in the age of automation. Like, what? So can you explain, what does that mean to you when you talk about your message sovereignty?
Yeah, well, sovereignty is how you stay true to yourself, how you own your story, how you own your voice, how you tell your story, the tone, the inflection, the words you use. And I am sorry, but AI is watering that shit down. I mean, that's really how I feel about it. And thank you for bringing that line of the bio up, because I actually wrote that in January of 2025 because I could see where the world was headed with all this crap that AI was putting out. And I was like, well, as a messaging strategist, I'm either going to put my stake in the ground and fine tune my own positioning and like continue to have a business, or I'm going to do what I saw so many others do, which was not the path I wanted to take, which was sell out, develop AI prompts for copy. And like, I didn't want to do any of that shit. I want it to be human. I want it to be heartfelt. I want it to connect with other humans. And so, Kat, I put my flag in the ground and got to work.
I love that. And I see both sides of this. I have people that really talk about using AI as a tool, but I do agree with you that I think that people have kind of used it as a way to be lazy as well. So they don't have to even think about it. And so they're just handing everything over. When I'm doing summaries and things with my podcast, like obviously I use AI because that just makes things a little bit simplified so that I can be super focused, right, on the person that I'm speaking with. But I also feel like I know what's going on and I'm the one that's still leading it. It's just a tool that is helping. And I do agree with you that, AI has some challenges in it when it comes to being able to present us and ourselves in a humanly way. Now, others could probably argue and say, well, if you have enough of a conversation with it and give it information, it should be able to do that. What would be your kind of take on that?
Oh my God, this could be a whole episode. So, first, the first thing I want to say, going back to something you asked before this, is I believe you don't know what's good or not good in terms of copy or words unless you know what's good, right? So people will come to me. I'm on people's emails list. I can spot, I tell you from the first two lines if it's AI written or not. All right. Now, some people may not care. That's fine. My people care. My people care about protecting their voice, protecting their message, protecting their opinion, protecting their point of view. So that's the first thing. You don't know if it's good if you don't know what good messaging actually looks like first. Okay. Now, to your second point, AI does not have something that I know helps messaging convert really well and people feel the emotion in our stories. And it's the little details of a story or a scene that make the biggest difference. I'm going to give you an example. Okay. I wrote an email to my list a couple of weeks ago and I said something along the lines of, I'm not sure which way is up or down anymore, and my underwear are living on the floor because my dresser sold. Do you know how many people reached out about that line? AI could have never written that line. It's specific. AI doesn't know my story that my dresser sold and now I'm searching for underwear for 4 weeks on my floor and I can't even find this shit, right? So that's what I'm talking about. The specificity, the nuance, that descriptive language, that is what pulls people in, and AI cannot do that.
Okay. I can completely agree with that. And that makes total sense. And I have been in that space where I'm like, oh gosh, everything is in bags and I don't know where it is.
Yeah,
Where's my bra? So
absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think that this is also why it's important in business. And I love what you said before of understanding what good copy is. And I don't think, right, that most of us in business, because we're all trying to play 50 roles at once while we're trying to be a salesperson and everything else, understand what that means. So how do you even figure out or start to understand what is good copy? I know that you just shared an example in regards to, a story that you can share and stuff, but how do you spot that? Because I know so many people maybe are toward the beginning of their business. And so they're like, I can't really afford to just hire someone to write all of my content, but how do I understand or start to get the feel that this is kind of where it should go? So when I do start growing, I can hire someone because we're not all meant to write our own copy. Let me be the first one to tell you that.
Absolutely. So that's the first realization is, oh my God, you guys would not want me producing podcasts or like designing graphics. It would be a nightmare, right? My specialty is words, specifically the psychology of messaging, the psychology of selling, the psychology of getting people enrolled in your mission. That is what I'm known for. That is what I love spending my time doing. Most people would run so far away from anything that had to do from that, right? So you have to, one, stay in your zone of genius. I think that's really important. I don't care if you're a beginner or not. You need to do what you're good at, and as soon as you can, get rid of the rest. In the meantime, when you're not ready for that, you could take a copy class. You could take from somebody that's not teaching you AI. Let me just be clear, right? somebody that's going to work with you. In the early days of this business, I was what people would call a content coach. And I would have people submit stuff to me and we would look at it and we'd say, what did you really mean here? And this doesn't have any feeling. And this is really vague language. Like, what is a life-changing transformation? Let's actually get really specific with what's happening. And so that's why I say you have to know what good is, and it is a skill. It is a muscle that can be developed. I've dedicated 30 some years to words at this point. Like, it's not something you pick up. Most people would not pick up really fast if it's not in their genius, but you can work with people and learn. Just quit buying templates and prompts. It is not helping anyone at this point in the game.
I love that. I didn't even think about, anybody that's willing to actually teach copy. That's a super fantastic idea. I think that it's like you just said too, it's really important for us as entrepreneurs to understand where our zone of genius is and understanding that focusing heavily on that and lightly touching on the other things as needed. Because I did everything in my business for a really long time before I first hired someone to start helping. And I was so glad to get it off of my plate, not because I couldn't do it, but because I knew that that's not where my focus was. And I think that that also wraps into what you're talking about in regards to messaging, because if we're in a burnt out stage, if we're in a I don't even know what to say anymore phase, and then you're trying to write things and get your message across, I personally believe that how you were writing in those moments, those emotions are still going to fold over into what it is that you're trying to present, which I think also leads into, right, like how do we lead with that joy? How do we lead with ourselves while also kind of following the ideas of like this is how you catch people's attention? Where do you feel like those two things start to kind of intersect and overlap?
Well, that's an interesting question. And maybe I can answer it with a story. So last night before I went to bed, I posted this long ass Facebook post, kind of know what I'm known for, very long, sophisticated, nuanced, in-depth copy. Like each post could be a master class in messaging itself, right? Or in a concept of growing your business. And there was a moment where a voice played in my head. It's not my voice, but I've heard it many times. I've heard people say, people don't read long stuff anymore. People don't read blogs anymore. People want short videos. People want short. And for 20 some years, I have just said, I'm not that person. I am not the person that produces short stuff. I don't believe it has depth to it like I like it. I am not the person that watches videos over reading long form content. I'm not that person. And there has to be more people like me. And so when I just let go of all the things that people say you should or should not do, and I do what brings me joy, right? Long form content brings me joy. I like to go deep. I will also tell you the flip side of that. The people who read my content and love it make the best freaking clients because they know we're going to go deep. Right? And that's part of that psychology of messaging we were just talking about is you can't appease everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. You can't, right? So the best thing you can do is be true to yourself, be true to your values. By the way, your joy comes from being in your values, right? And let the rest go and just believe that there's enough abundance and people who are going to resonate with your message and they will reach out. And if you change yourself for any reasons other than you wanted to change yourself, your copy, your business model, how you're doing business, it will not work because you won't be in alignment. And that's a clip, a 2-minute clip or however long I went on. That's like a master class in how to grow $1 million business. Because I've done that, right? I've done it without ads, but I've done it by staying true to my joy and who I believe I am at my core, and I attract those people to me.
All right. I love this. And this is something that I feel like I preach a lot is when we talk about all of the information that we're intaking from all of the coaches and gurus and people that have built multi-million dollar companies and so on and so forth, and nothing against them. And I think it's so easy for us to get sucked in to those things, especially when we don't feel like we have enough knowledge or understanding. We're always looking for someone to hand us the playbook, to hand us the templates, to hand us the way to perform it, and then follow along. And I do agree with you that I think that if you keep feeling like it's not working for you, like it just feels icky, that's when you have to really kind of pay attention to like, okay, does this really align with the way that I want to have conversations or how I want to run my business versus am I actually learning something? This is kind of hard, but I don't mind it. And this is where I plan on growing. So thank you for bringing that up because I think we're always, all of us are looking for the easy button, right? We're all looking for something that's just going to give us the answer so we can start making the money because that's what entrepreneurship's supposed to be about. And it is no way about that. It is the journey. It is the undoing. It is the learning of who you are. And that kind of wraps into intuition, right? Where do we start when it comes to understanding our intuition in this space? Because you do reach a point in your business where you have heard every single opinion. You've heard this person tell you this way, but this person disagrees and says you do it this way. And you've tried both and you're like, neither one of them work. What is going on? And I think what people forget is that when people are teaching you, a lot of times they're showing you because that's what worked for them, right? So they're looking to attract those, or should be those that isn't going to align because they think similar. It's just sometimes that messaging is broadened a little bit and you feel like you should be in it and you completely missed a mark, not simply because it doesn't work for you and something's wrong, but it's just not how you operate to begin with, right? If somebody sends me a spreadsheet and says, well, if you tracked all of these KPIs from this, and this, and you did all these, I would shut down. Don't get me wrong, you should be tracking some of your things, and I am not a spreadsheet girl. So there's no way that anyone is going to convince me that me looking at 6 pages of spreadsheets is going to show me everything I need to know how to do in my business. But it took me a really long time to understand the difference between this is hard, but I think it will help me grow, and this doesn't align with me. So what has your experience been in kind of that journey of learning how to trust and listen to yourself and not that little voice that pops up?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say I freaking love spreadsheets.
My detailed people are. I'm more of the, yeah, I know.
Rare bird cat of like, I freaking fly high as an eagle for strategy and soar way up here, but then I'm a goat and I got my head in the weeds. I'm like that rare person that can be
I
both
love
eagle.
it. And that's why I need people like you because I am not. I am just not. I just.
But my team's like, if you send me one more freaking spreadsheet, I'm like, open the spreadsheet. There's good shit in the spreadsheet. I promise. Oh, that's so funny. Okay, let's talk about intuition for a moment.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, there's so much I could say on this. I am not an expert on intuition. Okay, I'm an expert on my own intuition. And when I know, I know. This is like my own mantra, right? That I have said over and over and over again, even when I didn't know. I convince myself when I know, I know. And most of the time, if I quote unquote don't know in that moment, it's because I haven't gotten quiet enough and turned off all the noise and the voices and to actually think for myself, right? So we're moving to Spain in 19 days. Crazy, right? I know we're going to talk about this, so I'm just going to jump in because it goes with this. I got married, oh my God, why don't I know this? 15 years ago. And I married my husband, and my husband became my wife 6 years ago and came out as transgender. We had all these ups and downs and had to figure shit out, right? But here we are. And then we have this president that comes back and decides that the target is going to be transgender people, right? It's all over the news. It's horrible. These people are scared for their life. I live with one of them. All right. And we made a decision. Actually, an intuitive hit was, oh my God, this guy's back in office. We need to get our marriage certificate redone. I did not know why. My intuition was like, my marriage certificate is in Florida with somebody whose name and gender marker has changed, and we have to get this done. And I became obsessed with this, getting this. How was I going to get this done? Right. Fast forward to September, right? So 9 months later, I knew why I had to get it done, because we need to leave the country for a lot of reasons, but mainly Maria's safety. And guess what? The number one thing is you have to do and have, if you're going to have a dependent on your visa, a valid marriage license with the name, the gender markers, and everything that matches all the other paperwork. Okay. My intuition, Kat, in January, and I'm probably going to cry when I say this, it was screaming so loud. And I was trying to say, this is fear. This is fear. Just, it's going to be okay. It will be okay. But it wasn't okay. It's not okay. And it took me talking to 7 lawyers who all said to me, why don't you wait and see what happens? Their advice to me. Why don't you wait and see what happens? And I was like, no, that's not good. My intuition said that's not a good enough answer, right? So all of this to say, when I know, I may not know why, but I've learned to trust that my knowing is my intuition. And I'll figure out the why later if I need to figure it out later, right? And so we got the marriage certificate, got all the paperwork. We leave in 19 days. And my wife said to me, how do you feel about running a business from Spain? And literally what came out of me was, I can run a business from anywhere and make money. And she said, I love how confident you are. But that is intuition speaking. And I think a lot of times we can't hear our own intuitive guidance because, one, we're never quiet, or we're never in quiet location where we can actually think. We're scrolling through social media, reading all this stuff. There's ads coming at us every way. I think the world would be a much different place if we all just started our day with 20 minutes of silence. And then at lunch, 20 more minutes. And then before bed, 20 more minutes. But how often do we do that? Right? Your intuition can guide you. It can speak to you. It will give you answers that you don't even know you had, but not unless you're quiet enough to listen to it.
That is so true, and such a powerful story. And thank you so much for sharing that. I was that person on the other side where, to me, it never made sense that we could just figure out what to do, right? Like, I always thought, like, your logical sense is what tells you the direction you want to take it. And it wasn't until I started doing some healing and deep diving really into like the psychology and the neuroscience of the brain, of understanding, like, we have such a powerful engine and tool that is sitting right there for us. But because we are hit with so much noise and societal norms and things of go, 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 don't ever slow down because that makes you lazy. And I used to be one of those people. That's how I live my life. If I wasn't doing something and I was sitting on the couch, I was like, gosh, but I could be doing this and I could be doing laundry. And what if my kids wanted to do this? So it's really interesting when, like you said, you do take the time to sit down and start to listen. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say everything that you're going to hear is going to sound amazing. You're going to have a lot of things that come up. And that was, I think, probably one of the most interesting pieces was I realized how much I had ignored what I felt or how I saw things, which also shaped the way that I outwardly put myself to other people, right? We talk a lot about people being reactive instead of being able to intake information or be very neutral on something and have an open-ended conversation. And that is because we have so much going on in here that we're not giving ourselves time to listen to. And I get it, because a lot of times we don't want to hear that, right? We don't want to hear the things that we have to say about ourselves. And I also think that it's very important to be aware of that, because we come back to words, right? Words matter. And what you're saying to yourself internally, if you're trying to shut that down, you're also separating yourself from having the ability to truly hear what you may need to do. So I think that I love this. I think intuition, I think, is a really powerful and interesting topic and conversation. And I'm gonna say, like you, I'm not an intuition expert at all. I've found my own journey. And for me, it was like little things. So it was like, what do I want to have for lunch today? So instead of just going to the cabinet and being like, okay, well, this is available and this is available, so we're going to make this, I would just kind of think about it and be like, I don't really feel like this. I kind of feel, all right, we're going to have this. But it's cool because you can start to build, right, that trust within yourselves. We are taught to trust so many things outside of ourselves that we forget that we are who we should be coming back to because we are the most important thing. I've talked about this on the podcast with other people, from doctors and how we still need to have our own intuition, to how we do business and knowing how we want to handle things, and being okay with disagreeing with what someone's telling us because for some reason something deep down is saying, I'm not so sure about that. So thank you for that, because I think that intuition plays a huge part in my day to day now. And I think that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think that it's made a completely different way that I run my life versus how I know that I used to run things before. Do you feel like you've always been intuitive, or do you feel like you've kind of seen both sides?
I feel like when I was little, I was really intuitive, but it was shut down
Mm,
by logical thinking, people saying, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Um, oh, you couldn't know that. Like those were the things that I heard. Um, and so, I mean, I believed them after hearing it long enough, right? And then I remember, so I got married, was married previously, and I knew the day before the wedding I should have never been getting married. But guess what? I went through with it because everybody was coming, everything was done. It was the day before the wedding. But I remember thinking that, like, I woke up that morning and I was like, I should not be doing this. And then I did it.
mm.
And then here we were. I think we were married 7 or 8 years, right? Um, and I wish I would have listened. But I had been conditioned by society, by Western culture, by my parents, by that everyone knows better than I do, right? And that's a very dangerous place to be operating as a human who is a deep intuitive, who feels things, right? And so after I got divorced in my early 30s, I was like, okay, I do know. I knew this. I never told anyone this actually until now, actually, Kat. I never said anything. Like, I never told my mom or anything. But anyway, I know, and I'm not discounting my knowing anymore. And it doesn't even have to freaking make sense to me. And that's what happened with this move to Spain. That's what happened when my spouse came out as transgender. And I was like, I know I want to stay with this person. And I am not attracted to women, but I know I want to stay. This is my person. So how are we going to make this work? Right. And I'm so deep in my knowing. And if I don't know, it's because I just haven't had enough quiet time or long enough to, like, I run with things. I take a question and hike with a question, or walk with a question, or run with it, because movement helps me, like, sort stuff out, you know? So I would say for a long time, I had discounted that knowing, but then I was just like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, people are going to say what they're going to say. I'm going to live my life by my intuition, and my intuition, my joy are very connected to each other.
I love that. And I feel like that's a value of yours, right? And I don't think that we talk about this enough when it comes to anything that we do in our lives, right? The things that are important to us as an individual. We are meant to, or not meant to, but we're taught to fit into everybody's boxes, right? And I do feel like that does teach us that we're supposed to fit in. And then when we don't, we go back to, okay, well, what's wrong with me? And I suffered that after being in an abusive relationship, right? For 10 years, I was literally conditioned to believe everything about me that was completely and utterly wrong. And it took me a really long time to realize that Everybody is going to have an opinion. And yes, there are people that are around us when we're younger that are going to tell us certain things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to stick with those beliefs. It doesn't mean that what they said was true. What it is it's whatever knowledge that they had at that point in time in their lives or what they were taught from the generation before. And I think we're starting to see that as well, where people are starting to recognize that people were limited, in different generations, and that's fine and everything. However, we don't have to continue with that belief. It's just like science, right? Science is ever evolving. Otherwise, we would just believe the same thing, but there's new discoveries and there's things we thought was this and things are redone and now we believe it's this way, right? There's always things that are changing. And so if science and all these things that have proof have the ability to change, why don't you have the ability to change your own belief systems, your own internal way of being, and also your core values, which I think are super important to make sure that you understand. Now, coming back to kind of core values and talking about that as well, I know that you were saying, when you write your posts, they're super long, but like the people that work with you also are like on that level as well. So do you feel like having those core values is super important for your clients or just for people individually when it comes to writing our own stuff or speaking our own truth?
I think that when you're your truest expression of yourself, I want to say unfiltered, but I don't want that to get confused with like word vomiting on people. You know what I mean? But when you're your truest version of yourself, you will always find success.
Mm.
I really think that. I don't care if people don't like long posts. Some people will, some people won't. I don't care. What I know is that I'm a very in-depth person and I think very deeply and strategically about things, and I can't do that in a freaking dancing TikTok. Okay? I just can't. I don't want to. It's not fun for me. I don't dance. Not going to happen. Right? And when you are true to yourself, whether it's in your copy, it's in your story, you're true to yourself and how you run your business. It doesn't matter. You're true to yourself and how I'm going to dress to go out to dinner later, right? You will feel good because you are living in your values and in your value system. And when you feel good and you act good, for lack of a better word, or you act like you're happy because you are happy because you're not trying to be someone else, you will attract people who resonate. And that's it.
Mm.
That's the whole game, y'all. That's all you
Ta-da,
gotta
solved
do.
it. See, that's the end. We don't even need to talk about it. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, seriously, like this is such like, I mean, for two people that know this and have the intuition and we've been through the ups and downs, but you have to be ready to hear these things. But more than that, you have to be ready to stand in your truth, whatever that truth is. My truth now is I am married to a transgender woman. It does not make me a lesbian. It does not make me this. It does not make me a sinner. It does not make me any of these things that people want to say and box me in. I'm married to a transgender woman. That's my truth. Everyone else can put whatever labels they want on it. It's not any of my business, right? I wouldn't be moving to Spain. I wouldn't have made it 6 years through this transition if I was listening to what everyone else was saying, including the media, my Catholic background, my parents who are like, this is not right. We are not having any part of this. Like, no, my truth is my truth. And until you believe in your value and your worth and that you have nothing to prove and nothing to lose, you won't have the peace and the joy that you're looking for. Because you're always comparing or questioning or little voices trying to talk you out of it.
You're taking the masks off too that we're all so used to wearing to fit in. And it's so funny as you're talking about this. I was thinking about there is a gentleman, and of course I can't think of his name right now. I'll think of it later. But he is always doing classes on, this kind of thing, believing in yourself, being okay with who you are, not judging yourself so harshly and stuff like this. But he did a really cool one the other day that I like absolutely fell in love with. And he said, let's say that I've been dealt a card, right? Everybody is dealt a card when they're born. He said, and mine is the five of spades. He said, now my five of spades is trying to fit in to find other five of spades. He said, but you over here, because we went to high school together, you're a queen of hearts, and I'm trying to fit in with you. He said, so I end up hiding my five of spades, right? So that I can be accepted. And what we don't realize is we are in these tiny circles, whether it's the way that you grew up, the way that your religion was, your high school, your college, like those things, you have these little circles and you keep trying to make yourself fit in. And then every time you don't, you're like, oh, well, my card must be wrong. And so you put it away. And he said, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to expand and get past that, right? Meet someone on the street and say hello, talk to people at a coffee shop that you don't know, expand your circle so that you can find those that have your five of spades. And I think that it's the same thing in business, right? If we are presenting ourselves of whatever card it is that we are, it's going to attract those that we want to be connected with. And the best part is it repels those that you don't want to deal with, right? Now, you have to be okay, right, with taking that judgment or knowing that you're not somebody's cup of tea. But I have found that extremely freeing because I'm like, I don't really give a crap anymore. I used to care so much that I would ruminate on a conversation that was already done 3 days ago and have a conversation in my head and think about what they might say and just fixate on it. And I was destroying my life. I wasn't destroying anybody else's. And the more that I've gotten to the space of like, screw it, I don't care. Like, you don't like it, that's fine. You don't like this, that's fine. Like, my story is my story and who I am is who I am. That is the most freeing thing because you meet the people that are meant for you, and then those that don't agree just go whee off to the side, and it's crazy because it's like I don't even have to do anything. I just have to bring my energy, and someone's either going to go, oh my gosh, this is amazing, or oh no, never mind. And so I think it takes a lot of guesswork out of who you should be around or who is going to value you or who is supposed to be in your circle that you would be actually listening to their opinion so that they can be a sounding board. And I think that's extremely important for us to learn and understand as we are growing in any space of our lives because it really does, it makes a difference. Like you said, you really are living in your truth and who you are. And I can go to bed at night with like no worries. Like it used to take me like hours to fall
Then
asleep.
you'd wake up, right? Thinking about it still again. I think you and I are twins. Like,
You,
but I have a question for you, Kat. This is
ooh, yes.
yes, I am that guest who's
I
asked you.
love it.
What age do you think, even if it was like a 10, like in my 30s or 40s, whatever, what age do you think you were when you realized this is who I am and people can take it or leave it? When do you think that happened?
Ooh, I would say, I love this question. Let's see. I will be 39 on November 28th, which this episode will come out a little later. So, I would say 35.
Okay, good. So I would say this happened to me around 35 to 39, somewhere.
Look at that.
Yeah. But the reason I'm asking this is I think, one, I don't want there's like way younger people and they're listening than 30 is not 35, y'all. Okay. And I know there's only 5 years, but there's a lot that happens in your 30s that
Oh gosh.
I think are amazing, right? And then I think I was like, oh my God, the 40s have been so amazing. And now I'm going to be 50 in a year and a half. And I'm like, I can't wait for the 50s. Like, this is going to be amazing. But I really believe now that I'm older, or maybe wiser, right? I'm 48. There is so much. I watch my friends, I watch my sisters, I watch people your age, right? I watch clients. There seems to be something happen between 35 and 40 where people start getting rid of these stories and ideas and really come into themselves if they have the courage to do it, if they have the willingness to do it. And the reason I ask you this, and it's really interesting, is I was sharing with somebody, Amy, who is my partner in Joy here at Joyful Business Revolution. She handles all sales calls. I shared with her a couple weeks ago, I'm like, I have a theory. I think we cannot work with people until they've hit their 35 to 40s and they've been through this revelation, because they're our best clients. They don't get offended when I come back and say, this is crap and we need to fix it together. Like, let's dive into Google Docs and like work on this copy, right? And there's something that seems to happen, and that's why I asked you that question.
Ooh, I love that. I do think that when you get in a space in your life where you're like, all right, I can list out all the things that have gone wrong, all the things that are not going right, and you make the decision of, I don't want to live this way anymore, that's when you really can like go over that hump of like, screw it. I mean, either you like me or you don't. I really don't care kind of
Yeah.
a scenario, you know? And I do think, and there's so many people that I've talked to that like are in this space that are like, I love my 40s. And I'm like, yes, I can't wait. Because I think that there is a little bit of a transition. And I do think that we are meant to go through things at a younger age to be given lessons, to be able to learn things so that you can be wiser when you're older. You just have to make the decision, right? Of like, okay, that happened, doesn't define me, but what can I learn from it? And that was something that, I had to really shift for a really long time as well, because I was in an abusive relationship until the age of 28. Well, my boys were 10 and 7 when I left. The amount of guilt and judgment that I went through on myself of, not being a good mother and nobody's going to understand. And I have 2 different baby daddies and, that's unacceptable. And like all these things, Catholic upbringing, all these things that were put there before me. And it just got to the point where it's like I can't fit into the mold because I literally don't. Like I'm gone past that. So I can either choose to repeat the cycle and be absolutely freaking miserable, or I can be sick and tired of it, decide that something needs to change. And that change is always going to start with you. Even if that means, getting rid of people that you're around, it still has to start with you, because if you don't become you and start truly being you, it's a lot harder to deal with all the outside components. So I thank you for that question. I absolutely love that. I think that like now I'm going to go ask everyone that's like around this age that I know and be like, hey, I got a question for you. Shannon came up with this and I have to share.
Well, and I think it's important because there's so much we all go through. Like, I didn't have children. That was a choice that I made. So I can't relate to people. I hear a lot of my friend group, they talk about how their children were mirrored to them and they had to learn how to do things differently because of how they were raised or what they were taught or how they wanted to raise people differently. I don't have that mirror, but I was a public school teacher for 20 years and I had 90 mirrors looking at me every day. Like, and listen, I crashed and burned in my 20s. It was bad. Like, I didn't have EQ or IQ or whatever the hell it's called. I didn't have that back then. It wasn't even around yet, but I certainly wasn't raised with that, right? I was a white blonde woman showing up into Spanish Harlem where I looked like nobody. I had a lot of preconceived notions about what the problems were and how I could help. And I just had to go through, and we all do. We have to go through the things, I think, whatever those things are: marriages, divorces, births, deaths, job changes, business ownership, estranged parents. I mean, I could, a dying pet, whatever. We all have to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Once we're through it enough and we are aware, we'll call it conscious. We're conscious that we want something different or we want to respond. Mine was respond. I want to respond differently to people who piss me off. I want to respond differently to my parents who still think I should be going to Catholic church and I'm 49, right? I want to respond differently. And that was the awareness that I had, that I can only respond differently if, one, I get some new skills and change how I'm communicating, but two, if I can stand in my truth, because if my parents, and they still do, come to me and say, "You going to church? It's Christmas." I just say, no, I'm not. I don't go to church anymore. Period. It's not up for discussion. Like, they can ask every year for the next 20 years, they're going to get the same answer. And guess what? I don't feel bad about it. They know exactly where I stand.
That's a good thing though. But like you said, you're standing in your truth. And that is super hard to do, especially when it comes to family, right? Because
It
there
is.
is this like untalked about feeling of like you owe them, right? And I do think that that's part of a generational thing as well, of like owing something to the people that brought you into this world. And I'm here to say, and I love my family, but with what my kids have gone through, like you have absolutely every right to not have to deal with that as well, right? Because you don't owe them anything. It's your life to live. You're not living your life for someone else. And if you are, you're missing out on so many beautiful opportunities of joy and everything else because you're living for somebody else to their standards. So thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think that's super important for us to understand is we are living for us. We need to choose to live for us because you have one life, right? And so I want you to tell everybody how they can find you, but you also have an amazing book that talks about joy as well. So tell everybody the name of your book and where they can find that as well, because I want to make sure that that we get that out there for those that are looking for joy in their life.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you. So I have two resources for you today. One is my book. It's called Practical Joy, Simple Tools to Cultivate More Joy Every Day. It's a beautiful book. I took an art class. I got over my blocks of learning how to draw, and I made a coloring book. So it's part book, part workbook, part coloring book. It's in full
Oh,
color. It is
how
like a joy
cool.
to pick up. You can get Practical Joy by Shannon Hernandez on Amazon. And then for those of you that really want to dive more into your words and how to make, words encompass everything in your business. Messaging is the foundation of all of it. But I built a new mini course. It's 12 short video walkthroughs, and it's called Sales Page Help is Here. And you can actually watch a 2-minute video that will say, okay, now pause now, go to your sales page and fix this thing. All right, come back to video 2 minutes, go fix this thing. And so it's
Nice.
literally like a walkthrough video course in action of people being able to make the changes on their sales page so that it performs better. And you can find that at joyfulbusinessrevolution.com/sales page help. And if you want to connect with me and continue the conversation, hop over to LinkedIn, find me there at Shannon Hernandez, send me a message, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shannon. Of course, we'll have all that information in the show notes. We'll make it super simple for you to be able to find her book and find her help and everything. I'm super excited. I love the book. This is so cool. So thank you, Shannon, so much for not only sharing all of your knowledge, but being so open and vulnerable and courageous and standing in your true power and who you are as an individual. So I super appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And to everybody else out there, let this be your guidance as we are moving into 2026 of what do you plan to do differently within your life, right? And maybe it is in your business and maybe it is in the things around you. And let's take one of those to-dos and make it about you. How can you focus on you? How can you come back to you? Because you are the most important thing. And when you focus on you, I promise it amplifies out into the universe to everyone else that is around you. So thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable